Hello, everybody. You'll have to indulge me with this. This is my first time pre-recording a Zoom talk, and it's not as easy as I thought. I've been fighting with all of the controls, but now hopefully it will go okay. My name is George Miley. I'm a retired professor of astronomy at Leiden. When I was vice president of the IAU, I launched the IAU Astronomy for Development program. And my main love, my research, is distant radio galaxies. Today, I'm going to tell you about some programs that we have been doing in the past 15 years or so to use astronomy as a tool to target very young children. The wonder and the perspective that astronomy can give. And the idea is to stimulate globalism and advance all of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now, I don't need to convince you the need for a globalistic approach to solving world problems. Our planet is threatened by many, many global dangers. And just as the dangers are global, they need a global approach to solving them. We all know about climate change, COVID, pandemics. I think a really underestimated threat is the risk of nuclear war. 50 years ago, this was a big topic, but I think it's very underemphasized at the moment. And then we have extremism, nationalism, and wars between rival ethnic groups. So the question is, how can we make people think more globally? And our solution is that the most effective way of doing this is to reach out and target very young children at an age where their value systems are being formed, and that astronomy really excites them and can give them perspective of our tiny planet in the big universe. So, Universe Awareness and Pale Blue Dot are astronomy-based programs, but they have social goals. And the mission is to expose children in the age range 4 to 10 to inspire them and to really hook them on astronomy at the time when their value systems are forming. So we use the inspiration and the great fun of astronomy to convince them that science is exciting, but most important, once we've hooked them, to use the perspective of astronomy to try and broaden their minds, stimulate them to think internationally, and give them a sense of solidarity and respect at this really formative age. You say, what's the point? Well, is there any evidence that this works? And the answer is, there is. I'm not normally a fan of economists, but I'm going to call an economist as a witness. And he's not an ordinary economist, he's a Nobel Prize-winning economist, James Heckman. And he did a research on the effectiveness of educational programs as a function of age. And he found that the most effective, the most cost-effective programs were the ones that targeted children during their earliest years. And he followed the groups for 30, 40 years, and he found that children that had had preschool education were less likely to go to prison. So it really helped form their value systems. So there's a very strong case for funding interventions in early childhood. Let me ask Professor Heckman to say a few words.
But right now, given what we know that the greatest opportunities for improving the lives of human beings come by intervening in the early years. And I want to talk about the biology and the neuroscience that actually creates this. But the slogan that motivates a lot of this work would be that skill begets skill and motivation begets motivation. And what we've learned, and this is the positive message I want to share with you today, is that if society intervenes early enough, it can raise cognitive and social emotional abilities. And the rates of return on these investments, if we put it in a purely economic setting, range between 7 to 10%. As a benchmark, the historical return on equity, never mind the recent 6 months of the stock market, the historical return on equity is about 5.8%. So what we're dealing with is a rate of return on investment that essentially is very high, that competes with any social program, that's much better than infrastructure, much better than building bridges, much better than fixing potholes. Fixing people, creating a base for future productivity and motivation for the society has a very high economic and social return. And the positive news is that we can do something about our social problems.
Thank you, Professor Heckman. Motivation begets motivation. And what, if you want to motivate very young children, you need to excite them. And astronomy and space is one of the best tools for doing this. I just want to, I always show a few astronomical pictures and show them also to children, and they get really, really excited by them. Where you show them where stars are born, and each remember all of the stars that there are that are born out of these clouds, and where they die and explode and make these beautiful pictures, which I respectfully suggest are more beautiful than any picture that was ever painted by humankind, by men and women. So what is universe awareness, pale blue dot? What are the ingredients of it? First of all, there's teachers training. There's teacher training, but very important, it has to be matched to the culture of the targeted group. So a partnership with local teachers is essential. Secondly, we've developed quite a lot of innovative materials that are entertaining and fun and translated into several languages and cultures. And last but not least is the international network of experts, of teachers, of astronomers, and all sorts of educators that have got together with exchange ideas, and our experience is that the international profile, the combination of international profile and national collaboration produces a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. Both are necessary. So we began the project in 2005, and the first 2 years were getting going. And then we had a decade where we built up a network, a bottom-up network of more than several hundred experts who were active in more than 60 countries. And we were given a great boost by a European Commission FP7 project, for 2 million euros for projects in 6 countries. But all of the other countries were done by the local teachers and other country people. So here you see some of the many countries that we had activities in, universe awareness. And I just show you the sort of things that came out of it. Science, technology, culture, inspiration, and reaching out to a large public, but very important, reaching disadvantaged communities. The materials themselves were very innovative, and a very large role in this was played by Cecilia Scorza, who was first at Heidelberg. She's now in Munich. And this box of very, very inexpensive, but very fun tools that teachers can use to get children interested in the sky and in the universe. Here you can see we had crowdfunding, and we sent these boxes all around the world, and you can see it had a very, very wide reach. I'm very proud of this Islamic Heritage Toolbox, which was based on 4 very prominent Islamic scientists of the 9th and 10th century that made a very large contribution to science, 2 women and 2 men. About 2 or 3 years ago, we decided to do more than just concentrating on stimulating globalism, but to use the same, to expand universe awareness, to help children realize the importance of all of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so we changed the name to make that change clear. We called it ǀPale Blue DotÓ, a universe awareness program. And the reason, of course, is Carl Sagan's iconic mission for the Cassini space probe. It took a picture of our beautiful planet from the orbit of Saturn, and you see it as a pale blue dot. And you can use this pale blue dot to illustrate a lot of aspects of globalism. And Carl Sagan himself had several really famous quotes. And I just mentioned a little bit about them. First of all, peace. Fanatic, ethnic, religious, or national identifications are difficult to support when we see our planet as a fragile blue crescent fading to become an inconspicuous point of light against the bastion and citadel of the stars. And education, he relates how he wanted to become a scientist when, as a child, he first realized that all of the stars that you see in the sky are actually suns and appear to us, they're so far away that they appear to us as points of light. And last but not least, climate action. Look again at that dot. That's here, that's home, that's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every person who ever was, lived out their lives on this pale blue dot. So Cecilia is busy developing teaching modules that focus on each of the SDGs. and a pilot project in 5 countries. And here you can see description of her module on climate and solidarity. I now want to change gear a little and talk about a United Nations dialogue that we organized for the 75th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. It was on astronomy, a unique educational tool for furthering the SDGs and stimulating a global perspective. We were privileged to have the charismatic South African Foreign Minister, Miley take place, and all of the participants adopted a resolution that was sent to the Secretary General. The resolution said that before they're 10 years old, every child should be introduced to the inspiring notion that we all inhabit a tiny planet in a vast, wonderful universe, illustrated by the iconic pictures of the Earth taken from space. This will help them realize that we all belong to a common humanity who must respect and protect our planet and advance the cause of peace. But you can understand that to reach every child in the world, there's a really desperate need for funding. Now, it's a huge amount of funding. If you think that the number of children in the age range 5 to 10 in the world is about 700 million, I think you need to reach about 200 million children a year with universal awareness Pale Blue Dot message. So I think you're talking about a worldwide project of about $1 billion a year. But I don't think this may be so crazy, given the huge, the effectiveness. Remember what James Heckman said, that the value for money, more than anything else, is obtained by targeting young children, preschool education. And I want you to think about the amount of funding that is spent every year on space and astronomy. The annual government expenditure worldwide on space is about $80 billion. And on astronomy, about $20 billion, part of which is in the $80 billion. There's a new space race beginning between the United States, China, and Russia. So I think we can expect the expenditure on space to increase substantially during the next few years. And lastly, there is what I call obscene space joyriding by billionaires that don't have anything else to do with their money. And the total worth is 500 billion in a world that people are dying of hunger. So supposing we took about 1 to 2% of all of it, you could raise about $1.5 billion a year for this message of reaching young children with the message of globalism. So on the 15th of September this year, we're talking about a draft resolution in a science summit, a General Assembly science summit on the unique role of astronomy in advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. We are considering the following resolution. Taking account of the importance of the SDGs, the unique role that astronomy can have in advancing them, and the concluding resolution about Every Child that we adopted last year. And a recent report of the European Commission that pointed out the synergy between research and international development. We urge that at least 1.5% of global public and private expenditure on space and astronomy should be devoted to projects and initiatives that use the unique aspects of space and astronomy to contribute directly towards advancing the UN Sustainable Development Goals, particularly those of education, including measures to involve women, girls, and disadvantaged groups. So we'll see what happens. And I want to end by really stressing that these fantastic programs were only possible because of the work of huge number of inspiring and talented people, and I want to thank them all. I'm also going to end with a universe awareness video, which I think gives a good idea of what the program is about. But before I put it on, I also end with a quote by Isaac Asimov, that the saddest aspect of life right now is that science gathers knowledge faster than society gathers wisdom. Thank you very much.
We live on a planet called Earth with so many other animals and plants. We are surrounded by mountains, oceans, rivers, and a beautiful night sky that seems to go on forever. Our planet Earth is amazing, and the universe, wonderful. But sometimes I think people forget to look up. People don't pay attention to the sky. Because of the city lights, many people can't even see the stars in the Milky Way anymore. I remember the day we built our first telescope. Some cardboard, glass, and that is it. We made a telescope to look at the stars. Now that I know more about space, I can understand better how we're all part of it and part of the universe. Did you know that we are made of stardust? The calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, or the carbon in our breakfast all came from the insides of collapsing stars. We learned that in space, we become taller. When we look up, it seems like we're at the center of the universe. But when we see our Earth from far away, it looks tiny and very different. We become just one little dot surrounded by empty space. But there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand in all the beaches of the world. Can you believe it? Every little town, city, country, and all the grown-ups and all the children like me around the world fit in this tiny dot. Maybe if we looked into the sky more often, all the children of the world would feel closer to each other and would understand that we all share the same planet, the same home. Now that we are more aware of the universe around us, we are excited. We feel that we can reach the stars and use our imagination to explore and be curious about everything. Perhaps together we can get everyone to pay more attention to the stars, the sky, and our place in the universe, and protect our fragile home, planet Earth.